Assalamu alaikum and welcome back here to Inside Politics on Time Television. We have a very special guest with us, City Councilman Costa Constantinides. Councilman, welcome.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Councilman, you represent Astoria, Queens, an area very well known to the viewers of Time Television. And I understand you're a longtime resident of Astoria. If you could give us a little background about your family, you, and how you got to Queens.
Sure. I've been in the district my entire life. I was born in Astoria. My father came here from Cyprus in 1952. Yeah, he grew up in the Bronx, and then in about 1965 he came to Astoria. We've been Astorians ever since. My mom came with him at that point.
Right.
And my first job was on Steinway Street. Worked in the Genovese there, and worked in KB toy stores for a while I was in college, and then went to law school. And graduate of the local schools here in the neighborhood, PS 84, 122, and Bryan High School. And when I was in law school, I made the decision I wanted to pursue public service. And started working in the city council. Worked for Darlene Mealy as her legislative director, and then Jim Gennaro as his deputy chief of staff for 6 years. And took that experience to work in 2013 to run for office, being a political leader here, a civic leader here, and then having that 7 years of experience working in the council and ran.
You have a very diverse district. It has historically the largest Greek population, I think, in the city. Of course, you're Greek American. It's got a huge Bangladeshi community, large South Asian community, large Muslim community. How does it feel to represent such a diverse community and such a large South Asian community?
Oh, it's Astoria is the melting pot. There's 160 languages spoken in Queens. I think we all got them in Astoria. Yeah, and having people know about the Greek population in Astoria. The largest grouping of Greeks outside of Greece in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But we have the third largest Bangladeshi population in Queens.
Wow.
25% of the district's Latino.
Right.
We have a huge South Asian population, Muslim population, and that's beautiful, beautiful thing. I mean, we have. Everyone lives together. Everyone's part of the same community. We all have the same hopes and wants and dreams, and we respect one another. And that's something that I can't. Have a 6-year-old son.
Right.
And he's learning about how important it is to respect all cultures.
Right.
And we all live together. And that's a great thing.
And I know you had a lot of diverse support in your election. You were endorsed by the Muslim Democratic Club, the Alliance of South Asian American Labor. And I know you have a lot of support in the community. For a lot of our viewers, who are primarily Muslim Americans, right now there's been a lot of talk about us in politics. And Donald Trump has gone on national stage and said to ban all Muslim immigration to the United States. What do you think about his comments, and what do you think about that?
I won't even say his name, because I feel that saying his name gives him power. He wants to be noticed. He wants people to be talking about him.
Right.
I find his words despicable. We're all Americans, and that's that. It's just the hate that he's bringing on. We saw it happen earlier, late last year, where Sarkar Haq in our district was assaulted.
Right, a Bangladeshi store owner in your district was a victim of a hate crime.
Yeah, and he's like, there's a gentleman screaming, "I'm going to kill Muslims."
Right.
And that's everything that's wrong about what Donald Trump is talking about, but the response was everything that's right about what Astoria is about and what this country is about.
Well, I know when that hate crime happened, you responded quite vigorously. Can you tell us all the events that happened after that crime happened and what's going on now with Mr. Sarkar's case?
Mr. Haq is, he's been here over 30 years. His family goes to PS 122, which I went to as well. He's a small business owner. He's part of this community. This is his community. This isn't him coming in. We're all the same community. He's what makes this community great.
Right.
So we came out and had a rally, and we did it a couple of days after during the week. We wanted to show solidarity with him. We weren't sure what to expect, but hundreds of Astorians came, and they actually had to close down 21st Avenue because there were just so many people there to say, "We love you, Mr. Haq. Sarkar, we're with you. We support you. You are this community. You're what makes Astoria great. We're not going to let anyone's nonsensical voice or biased opinions reflect what our neighborhood is."
Right.
And so little kids were coming with cards, and it was just a touching scene.
Right.
And we showed him our strong support. And then we spoke to the district attorney, and we were glad that they took the step to charge this as a hate crime.
Right, a felony, right, which is a much more serious charge and will lead to stiffer penalties for the perpetrator.
We have to send up a strong message.
Right.
That these types of crimes will be dealt with swiftly, that there is no quarter to be found in the empty words of the national debate.
Right.
That if you're going to act on this nonsense, you're going to be put in jail.
Right. Now, you're one of 51 members of the city council. It's a very interesting time for the city. There are a lot of hot issues. I know in this community and for a lot of our viewership, people have been talking about, especially our senior citizens, and the lack of senior care in culturally sensitive languages, in Bengali, that understand halal food and food options like that. I actually went to a senior center in your district called Hannock, which is a great senior facility, one that I think a lot of people can learn from. How do we get more senior centers like that to be built and to serve everybody in Astoria?
Yeah, we've worked closely with Hannock over the years, and we have a really diverse population here in Astoria. We have to provide culturally sensitive support for our seniors. And Hannock has done part of that, and they're doing a great job. We have to get a little bit more focused. And I've been working with our borough president, Melinda Katz, to try to identify a location that we can have, South Asian senior center that's culturally appropriate, and halal food, and all of those things to make sure that everyone feels that they have a place to go that's for them. And so we're working on it. It's something that's at the forefront of my mind, and I'm trying to find that right location for it.
Well, if anybody's watching and has a location to suggest to the councilman, I'm sure he would.
Please do.
Would definitely consider it. Councilman, a large amount of our viewership and also this community is very involved or affected by the ground transportation industry, taxis, black cars, Uber, and increasingly we've been hearing a lot of frustrations from members of the community that they're making less money, either through Uber or even through the industry in general, or they used to be very involved in yellow cabs. I think there's a big debate in this city, and I think, how do you think drivers could have a bigger voice in the governance of this taxi debate?
I think protecting our drivers has to be an important part of this conversation. And I feel at times we're lacking that. We need to make sure that, as drivers have told me time and time again, that you have to have a supplemental income, you have to have a primary income.
Right.
And if drivers are losing hours, they're losing pay, they can't support their families, the part-time shifts that they're picking up just aren't enough to patchwork to do what they need to do to have their American dream. So we're finding a sane system here, finding a series of reforms that we can do as a council that can level the playing field, and have everyone on the same page, which some may not like, but no matter what the business model is, it's coming up with something that's good for drivers, good for those that are taking the cabs, and something that that makes sense. A regulatory structure that is uniform.
I was at a driver rally today, actually, on the steps of City Hall, and they were asking the city council and the mayor and the agency to consider new rules and regulations for app-based drivers. Things like, you actually can't even tip a driver on Uber when you take Uber. It would be to force these apps to have certain more functions on them. And also maybe sort of a minimum price, and to ensure that there'd be a certain amount of money a driver will definitely make. When I was there, people feel like, Uber has all these lobbyists. The garage guys have all these lobbyists. Who's really the champion for drivers? Do you think these are measures that you would support?
I mean, those things definitely I would support. I mean, are there things that we can do that can, I hear about, well, this is our business model. And that sort of frustrates me. It's not about any one particular app's business model. It's about what we have to do as a city to make sure that an industry that has always been well regulated can continue into the future, and that those that drive were treated with respect and treated in a way that they can continue to support their families. And there's got to be a way to do that. And no matter what, I hear from different apps, well, we're not a taxi company. We're a technology company.
Right. Yeah.
I find that to be disingenuous.
It's absolutely disingenuous, and I think that's going to change soon. There's actually a lot of litigation in the federal courts about whether these drivers are independent contractors or employees, and then the nature of the app gives so much control to the to the companies that it looks like they're going to be deciding that they're employees.
I look at this and say, anytime we regulate technology, they're like, "Whoa, you're hurting us. You're hurting technology. You're hurting growth." It's like saying, well, because I regulate, the cold cuts in a deli that
which you do a lot.
that I hate sandwiches.
Right,
but this is a
we
way.
both love sandwiches.
We both love sandwiches. So this is a matter of finding some way that there can be a common sense, uniform policy for the city of New York that everyone can play by the same rules, and then once you're playing by the same rules, everyone can win, and not with one particular entity that figured out a way to operate that's
right.
When you're talking about driverless cars, you're not for the drivers.
That's right, and they're human beings, not robots.
Exactly.
So, Councilman, we just got to take a short break. Everybody, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Time Television right after this break. Welcome back to Inside Politics here on Time Television. We're back with City Councilman Costa Constantinides, the representative from Astoria in the New York City Council. Like I said, Astoria is a neighborhood that everybody knows and loves, especially at this station. I think maybe we're basically in Astoria right now, in the studio, right? But we're maybe a block or 2 blocks from your district boundary.
Yeah, just 2 blocks away.
I think I actually parked in your district.
There we go.
What's fun and exciting going on in Astoria? I know you're trying to build a soccer stadium right on the water, not a stadium, I'm sorry, soccer field right on the water in Astoria Park. Can you tell us more about that?
Astoria Park's a jewel of our neighborhood. It's really a place that once was built in 1933, has been a refuge for our kids to come to every summer and to swim and to play sports and to really enjoy green space. But the middle of the track is lacking. And there is an opportunity there to add soccer, to have a FIFA regulation size, 100 by 50 field that can be used for tournaments, for permitted time, and just for kids to come and actually have a real place. Because right now you got to go to Randall's Island, which is in Queens, or Jackson Heights, which again is close. But if you're living in Astoria, you want to be able to take the ball, take your friends, and to walk down to the field and just kick the ball around and have fun, and not be, I'm in somebody's basketball court. I'm here. I'm on concrete. You slide and playing soccer on. But this is part of our larger $15 million capital plan for Astoria Park that renovate our playgrounds, get a new soccer field, renovate the pool complex, invest long-term in our park, and have a real plan, and not just do it haphazardly, but say we're going to raise $15 million over 5 years to make sure that the things that we need for the next 100 years of Astoria Park are there, that our kids can enjoy it long-term, and why should our kids not have the amenities that other communities have? Right.
There's also talk about having an above-ground train connect basically Williamsburg, Brooklyn to Astoria, Queens. How do you feel about that?
I'm intrigued. The ability to connect Western Queens with the rest of the city is exciting. Right. Right now, if you want to take the train to Brooklyn, you got to take the go through Manhattan, which makes no sense. Right. Even to get to Long Island City somehow is a little bit more complicated. Mm-hmm. And the further west you go in my district, the longer the commute. The Howard's Point Peninsula is 1,515 feet from Manhattan, and yet they have one of the longest commutes. They have to take a bus 20 minutes and then take the train into Manhattan. Then they have to go to Brooklyn if they work there. This connector could be a real time saver and a real asset. But there, of course, I want to make sure our community has a voice, that there are some questions answered about turnarounds, and if these, if we're the end of the line, where does it end? And how are they going to store these vehicles when they're not in use, if they need to be repaired, or how do they turn around? And make sure that our community isn't bearing an undue burden. But I think there's a lot of real positives there, and I'm very curious and excited to hear more details.
And tell me more about any other new exciting projects that people in Astoria can look forward to.
We want to build. We call it the Science Learning Initiative, and we're talking about every year that I've been in office, we put $1 million into our local public schools for technology. Wow. 15 schools in our district, $60,000 per school, to make sure that they have the upgraded technology. Because when you buy your phone, it's obsolete before before you leave the store. Right. But the same thing for our kids. They should have the top of the line smart boards, laptops, computers, so they can compete for 21st century jobs. Second part of our initiative is fighting to make sure climate education is taught in our schools.
That is really big.
Right now it's not part of the curriculum. It's part of a small portion of the science curriculum.
Climate change.
Climate change. It affects, science, political science, economics, everything that we do. Hurricane Sandy has demonstrated to us, what it can do to our city. And that goes way beyond just a science curriculum. So making it a larger part of it.
You learn how to be a global citizen, and when you talk about climate change, I think one of the most affected areas in the world by climate change is actually Bangladesh. Between rising sea levels, mudslides, a lot of, sometimes other parts of the world are facing the consequences of our use.
It's, we have to think globally. In New York City, I was proud to be the sponsor of the bill that's has reducing our city emissions by 80% by the year 2050, and we've been working on bills that are.
Has it passed?
It passed. We passed it in 2014. It was my first bill. I was pretty excited about it.
Right.
And the mayor's built his built to last plan around it.
And so, what is the standard?
To reduce New York City emissions by 80%.
That is quite the goal.
By 2050.
Right.
From 2005 levels.
Right.
So when we're at our peak, when we were at the worst in 2005, reducing it from 80% from there by the year 2050. And we've done a geothermal bill that the mayor signed in June that for the first time in city history takes into account into the cost-benefit analysis the social cost of carbon.
Wow.
So we're trying to do some really innovative things, and as part of the science initiative, build science spaces in schools. Build or improve a science space in all 15 of our local schools so that our kids can see science come to life in their school, give the teachers an opportunity to do something called a hydroponic science lab, where you have the food growing from the ceiling. So kids can learn about healthy eating and sustainability and all of these science techniques in their own school, and then teach those in their communities, again, being a global citizen.
Right. Councilman, you've been very active in politics as an organizer before you got elected. I know at one point you were the founder and president of the Queens County Young Democrats. Now I don't know if you're allowed to be a member of that.
No, that time is long since passed.
But
I think you might still be there.
I'm still there a little bit. Tell me about, I know you. I know you've worked really hard to get where you are politically. I know, you started really with really nothing. I mean, it's not like you come from a political legacy or anything like that, and you built it up. Tell me, it took a long time. What's your advice to people watching this show that want to be elected officials or want to have a bigger impact in local politics?
The biggest thing I can say to them is to just throw yourself into it. When I started, I was a toy store manager. I had just started law school. I had volunteered on a political campaign, and I got excited about it. But then when the campaign's over, it's like, well, what are we fighting for? Why am I a Democrat?
Right.
Well, these are values that we have, right? So I started just throwing myself into it, and I didn't know much, but I wanted to learn. So I just kept saying, "How can I help? How can I help?" And I was able to, do that. Became president of the Kings County Young Democrats because there wasn't a voice for young people.
Right.
We had no voice. There was no way. We were able to institutionalize it and bring it into the Queens Democratic Party and make us the official youth arm of the party.
Right.
And go from, as you remember, maybe 15, 20 young people in a room to the second largest chapter in the state by the time I finished in 2012.
Wow, that's significant.
And it, and then as a Democratic district leader, it's like, well, how can we make our Democratic clubs look more like our community?
Right.
Bring that diversity in. Talk to people about the things that matter to them. And I think what's always been lost in Democratic politics is 50 years ago, the club was a place where people came together to talk about issues that mattered.
Right.
And that has to be reclaimed.
Right.
We have to be talking with each other and in a diverse setting and reflecting of our neighborhood, the things that matter to us, and come to group decisions and work together. So I think anyone who's watching this show that wants to be involved, I would say get involved with your local civic association, things that are happening on your block. Get involved with your local Democratic club, and again, talk about the things that matter to you. And the more that you want to get involved, the more opportunities there'll be just by saying, I want to help, I want to be involved, I want to be part of this. You open doors, and I recognize and appreciate the people who open doors for me. And now I'm trying to do that same thing, is building the Young Dems and working as a Democratic district leader, now having the opportunity to be an elected official, is continue to give a voice to those that don't have one. So we're doing participatory budgeting this year.
Right.
So I would say if you live in Council District 22, March 28th through April 3rd, come and be part of participatory budgeting. Come vote.
And Councilman, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
They can email me. I'm at Costa, C-O-S-T-A, at council.nyc.gov. I read my own email. You can write me. I read it myself because I feel that the first email, the first response should always be from me.
Right.
I should know what's going on and what you're talking to me about. And then my staff, which is great. I'm lucky to have the staff that I do.
Right.
They jump on it right after that. But I'll read the first email you send me. You can call my office at 718-274-4500. Unfortunately, I can't always answer the phone.
Right.
But also, come to my office at 3109 Newtown Avenue. Write me a letter. I read those as well. I read all the mail myself. Again, because I want to make sure that I'm hearing your voice, and that when you're reaching out to me, you're going to get a response from me, and then my staff, which does an amazing work, can get to work for you.
Well, Councilman, you were certainly a good friend to this community, and we thank you for all of your advocacy and being there for us when it's easy and also when it's not easy, and we appreciate that. And I want to thank you for coming on this show.
Lee, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for having me. It was a great honor to be here.
And I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight on Time Television here. I'm Ali Najmi, your host for Inside Politics. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.